There's a political reckoning coming for a cabal or a clique of world leaders who are responsible on their side of it for much of this. So Bush is an example, Tony Blair's an example. They invaded Iraq on false pretenses. We now know all of that was based on a lie. Again, back to Adam, to your point, that's why I say we all have to take responsibility for the full picture here. Yeah, and just like I believe Muslims have to take responsibility to clean house as well, right? Which is what we've been doing for the last, since I left that group in 2008. With much sacrifice, but it's not easy to do what I do. And me and my brothers, what we do is not easy because, as you can imagine, it's faced with a lot of pushback as well. But everyone has to take responsibility. So there's a political reckoning coming because these guys ruined the entire Middle East. It is, I cannot overstate the damage that the invasion of Iraq and then, with Afghanistan added to that, and then Syria and what happened there, I cannot overstate the damage that's done to the world and how difficult it's made everyone's jobs. And they haven't stopped. I mean, during the COVID mandate period, again, for the record, I opposed every single COVID mandate and lost my job over it. I was a national radio broadcaster in the UK on the largest commercial radio station. But I basically opposed every single mandate. Masks. I flew with to Tennessee without a mask on and posted a photo. And then the chief of staff of the governor wanted to meet me when I landed because they tell me about flying without a mask. It was surreal. But we've got to, so just as when that mandate period emerged and Tony Blair started again pushing for digital IDs and for synchronizing everybody up with the technocracy, these people want total control. It's why we call them globalists. They want total technocratic control of everything we do, filtered through their systems, their infrastructure, with no privacy, so they can see and hear everything. And that's the same cabal that invaded Iraq. It's the same cabal that has been through the money laundering in Ukraine and pushing for more and more war and the securitization of our societies as a result of that. So I think there is a political reckoning that is long overdue, and I think Trump is one manifestation of that political reckoning. And in the UK, Nigel Farage is an example of what happens when you allow the establishment to get away with impunity for decades, committing crimes, invading countries. There's still a CBS 60 Minutes clip of Madeleine Albright, the late Madeleine Albright. She's passed away, so I've met her as well. I won't say anything rude about dead people. That's Prophet teaches us. He says, do not abuse the dead, for you only harm the living. So when we speak of the dead people, even if we oppose them vehemently, we speak in terms of ideas and themes as opposed to making it personal. So she was asked by Leslie Stahl on CBS 60 Minutes that 500,000 children died in Iraq. This is the war before the invasion. And this clip's still up online, widely available. And Leslie Stahl, who I've also met because they did a 60-minute segment on me as well. But Leslie Stahl says to Madeleine Albright, that's 500,000 children. Is the price worth it? And Madeleine Albright says, yeah, we believe the price is worth it. Wow. And these children died, many believe, from the effects of depleted uranium that was used in Iraq. But you've got a situation where the entire world has been ruined by this cabal who continue to act with impunity, even here in the United States of America.
I think Vinny brought up a very good point about the Bush administration. Yeah. I guess my question to the follow-up is, what level of involvement should the United States play in the Middle East? Obviously, we got out of Afghanistan. Iraq was a disaster. We saw what happened with ISIS and ISIL. But when we leave the Middle East, that opens up a vacuum for Russia to come in and Putin to do what he's want to do. China is investing in Iran and different parts of the Middle East. Obviously, I think we've learned the hard way. We can't just place our values of democracy and freedom into the Middle East and hey, go for it, guys. Yeah. But should America just completely vacate Middle East? What level of involvement should America?
I mean, look, so let's start with, that's a really good, I think it's a good exploration here. Let's start with the aim. I think the aim should be a more multilateral world that works together. And so that doesn't mean Chinese domination. It doesn't mean Russian domination. So just over a year ago, I was on the JRE, the Rogan podcast, and I believe he speaks highly of you, Patrick. I saw a clip where he's very happy with you. I was warning at the time, before this whole Ukraine saga and the FTX thing blew it up in the way it did. And I was saying this is all a mistake because what we're doing is going to push Russia and China together. Well, that's what's happened since. Yeah. They've basically formed an alliance. And it's very interesting because if you see what China's managed to do, Nobody thought it would be possible to pull from under the feet of everybody, to pull the rug in the way that they have done between Saudi Arabia and Iran. China negotiated a peace deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran, which one hopes will bring an end to the slaughter in Yemen, where it's been horrific, with children starving in the way that you see the images coming from Yemen. It's terrible. So the hopes that what we're seeing now, let's take the Abraham Accords, and UAE and Israel negotiating with each other. And now let's take Saudi and Iran negotiating with each other. The Abraham Accords had American sponsorship. The Saudi-Iran deal had Chinese sponsorship. If we can all recognize that the way forward isn't occupation, invasion, and funding wars, but funding and sponsoring peace, and these forms of negotiations, I'm not opposed to either of them. The Abraham Accord, you may well be aware of them, Adam, but the Abraham Accords,
Yitzhak Rabin.
That's right, and it was just the idea that Israel can have cooperation with the Middle East and trade, or the idea that Saudi and Iran can do so. Neither should be rejected. We've got to stop these wars because nothing good comes from them. And they're all proxy wars. The one in Yemen between the Houthis and the Yemeni authorities was a proxy war, the Houthis being effectively backed by Iran and the Saudi backing the Yemeni authorities, and it led to mass slaughter, mass killing.
Still going on to this day.
That's right. But one hopes that this negotiated peace that's being between Saudi and Iran, China has been sponsoring. So now why I mention that is China has made an offer to Zelensky. So I've been a very vocal critic of China. Before my cancellation, I launched it eventually turned out to be a 4-day hunger strike while I was on air. And the aim was to gather 100,000 signatures on a parliamentary website, which would trigger a debate in parliament to recognize the plight of the Uyghur Muslim people in China, who are an ethnic minority group that are being targeted and discriminated against by the Chinese Communist Party because, of course, the presence of any traditional religious identity under communism is a problem.
How do you pronounce it?
That pronunciation I won't vouch for because I don't speak the Uyghur language.
Well, we've heard Uyghurs a million times, but okay.
So the Rahima Mahmoud is the head of the UK World Uyghur Congress, and she attempts to correct me when I say Uyghurs.
Okay.
And the correction I can't vouch for. That how you heard me pronounce it there isn't. Yeah. Don't take my word for it.
You just say it way more ethnic than I do. Yeah. I say it like a white guy. Uyghur. Uyghur.
Yeah. So that is an example of me not being a great fan of the Chinese regime. But I try and give credit where credit is due. And we've got to recognize that if we want the kind of world that I hope we all want, which is more peaceful, more united in a spiritual sense, more multilateral, then we've got to recognize China exists. And where they're doing good, like negotiating peace between Iran and Saudi Arabia, we've got to say that's good.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one, click right here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click right here.